people start joining in. If you guys do have questions, feel free to start putting your questions in the chat box. Terrance is going to go over your questions after we go through the presentation today. So again, we're just going to give it a few minutes to let some people file in. We got a pretty packed house today. So we'll give it a few minutes and we'll check back with you guys in a second. So again, if you do have questions, feel free to put your questions in the chat box. Going to give it a few minutes for some more people to file in. Everyone will, if you have questions, please feel free to put some questions in the chat box. Again, we'll get to those in a little bit, just giving it a few moments to let some people file in, and then we'll dive right into it today. Going to give it about one more minute to let some more people file in, and then we'll get it going.
Should be playing that elevator music, Darren.
I know. Well, that said, I know we're about a couple minutes in, so I might as well just get this started. We'll have some people probably join here in a second. But everyone, welcome to the Financial Leads Academy live call. I'm your host, Darren Brody, today. I'm also joined by Terrance. So Terrance McMahon is with us today, and Terrance is going to be talking about recreating yourself and your practice. And so just a little bit more about Terrance. So Terrance is a best-selling author, TEDx speaker, coach, and expert in personal and brand storytelling. And Terrance is one of 6 children born in Berkshire Mountains in Pittsfield, Massachusetts. He attended the University of Massachusetts, Lowell, right?
Yeah.
Lowell, yeah. Lowell. And on a baseball scholarship. Following college with a new wife and baby on the way, he worked as door-to-door life insurance salesman, ultimately finding his niche as a managing partner. Later worked for Mass Mutual and made CEO of Mass Mutual Northern New England. Under Terrance's leadership, they soon ranked among the top in the country, with over hundreds of agents and brokers managing over $1 billion in assets. And in 2017, Terrance was a recipient of a life-saving liver transplant, which we'll tell you about more. And he's an author of 4 books and an inspirational speaker and a business strategist. He's an advocate for organ donor awareness. So with that being said, that's all I really have for this introduction. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pass it over to Terrance so he can get right into recreating yourself and your practice. So Terrance, I'm going to make you the host, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen here in a second. And
thank you so much for that kind introduction.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to try to recreate a chain of events that leads me to where I am now, talking to you. I live now in a little north of Miami Beach. I wanted to see the sun every morning in the ocean. So when I redesigned my life, I picked out a place that would have good airports and then would have a view of the ocean. So that's where I live for now. But I've designed my life so I can work from anywhere, which is the title of my new book, The Anywhere Advisor, which Darren's going to talk to you about getting a copy of. But I'll bring it back to an abbreviated version of my TED Talk, where I talk about how I went from broken to beautiful, and how I'm going to teach you about an algorithm to recreate yourself, a 3-step algorithm. And what an algorithm is you're seeing a lot in these companies, and Google and Amazon and Tesla are all algorithms. I just got a Tesla last month, and it's a bunch of algorithms that drive the car. My car drives by itself. Last night we were pouring rain sideways, and I was in a restaurant, and the lady goes, "You're going to get wet." And I said, "No, I'm not going to." You hit a button, and the car pulls around without anybody in it and picks you up. That's an algorithm. It's a set of steps to get a result. Just like we all know how to make a grilled cheese sandwich. That's an algorithm. 2 pieces of bread, a piece of cheese, a little butter, bake it a little bit on both sides, and you got a nice sandwich. So this is a set of steps to produce a result. So going back to where I grew up and what brought me to my journey to transplant and transformation was a series of algorithms and a series of good and bad algorithms. Some good and some bad. The good ones helped me produce the large results. And the agency that I grew from 17 agents and about 800,000 in commissions to we're doing almost 12 million in revenue when I retired. But the bad ones made me unhealthy and sick and broken. So when I grew up, you see who you see when you grow up, and your heroes are the people in your lives. My hero was my father. He was a professional baseball player. He's also a beer salesman, kind of a rock star type. But he was my hero, and he had 6 kids. I was the youngest. He had 4 boys and 2 girls. Eddie, my oldest brother, was an All-American professional baseball player at UMass. He was a number two pick in the '73 draft. My brother Sean played for the Blue Jays. Tim and I went to school on scholarships. And Dad taught us the algorithms on how to play baseball, how to hit, how to throw, how to play, how to catch, how to win. And it worked. It worked for me for sure. I got a scholarship and went on to play at UMass Lowell, and learned a lot about algorithms. And my story really starts my first day there when I got to school, and I didn't think I belonged there. I'm in my dorm room. My mom and dad just dropped me off, and I had this wave of fear and anxiety. I now know I was having my first panic attack. I didn't feel I belonged, and I had this uneasiness I never had felt before. And instead of sleeping and going to bed, I ended up going out and I used alcohol, and alcohol relieved the symptoms. And that was an algorithm that I would use to relieve these ongoing panic attacks that I would have for the next 30 years. And that obviously doesn't bode well with college baseball. So I peter out of college baseball in 1991. There's no jobs. I have no money. I have a baby on the way, no degree. And the only job I can get in 1991 was with Prudential. I went from a hero on the baseball diamond to the butt of a joke out of a Woody Allen film. I don't know if you ever saw Take the Money and Run, but in the movie, Woody Allen's character robs the bank and gets caught, and the judge sentences him to 2 weeks in a dungeon with a life insurance agent. So I was a door-to-door life insurance agent, knocking on doors in Lowell, Massachusetts. I didn't know anybody, didn't know anything, didn't have anything. And I had a couple of good mentors, but up and down the streets knocking on doors. And I was on the brink of failure, emotionally, physically. And then I had an epiphany the day my son was born, on January 10, 1992. David was born, and when he was born, he came out of his mother, and the nurse is a beautiful baby boy, healthy. And the nurses instantly put ink on his hands and his feet and put it on a card. So they put the ink on this card, and they start filling it out. And I was interested to see what that was. And the nurse said, this is how we submit this to the town to make his birth certificate. So I was like, that's very interesting, because on Tuesday night, along with knocking on doors, we would call birth announcements. If anybody here is old enough to know that birth announcements used to come in the paper once every other week, I think, or every Tuesday, they would come and we'd call. There was 50 of us at Prudential. We'd sit in the same office in an open room, like a sweatshop, and we would call. And of course, everybody had already heard from somebody else by the time I called. So I had a hunch, and I went down to town hall, and I created one of the first algorithms that I ever used professionally. I went there and asked for the list of people that had been there in the last few days that hadn't reached the paper yet. And I wrote down the names. I went to a payphone. I got their number. I went back to the office, and instead of calling out of the newspaper, I called them and said, I saw their new child's birth certificate in town hall today. And I'm a local insurance agent that specializes in college planning. And I'm wondering if you've updated your plan since your new arrival. I'm in your area. I'll be there, every single week I'm out that way. I'll be there next Wednesday. If you're around, I'd like to show you the type of work I do. So that little algorithm, that one algorithm, was the framework for an algorithm that I would later use to build a 6 and later 7-figure income. So I used it. I actually used that in a different sense when I went to direct mail. The first virality I ever had in my life was a Pitney Bowes mailing machine, which was in about 1993. I bought a mailing machine that took a blank piece of paper and would print a direct mail letter on it. It would fold it, insert it into an envelope, print the address on it, and put a stamp on it. It was a very expensive machine. I don't really remember what it cost, but that machine was one of our first big hits. And I started generating leads, and I got a lot of leads. And pretty soon I had more leads than I had time. I built this big company. And then I started giving leads away to my old buddies that couldn't get leads. And all of a sudden, I'm a general agent. I ended up becoming a general agent with New England in the late 1990s. So I spent the next many years using these algorithms to create opportunities for myself and the agents. So if you fast forward to 2016, I kind of blew up. I had over 600 agents and brokers that I was doing some form of marketing for, either radio shows, seminars, direct mail, different cold calling and telemarketing programs. And we had over 50,000 customers. We had over $1 billion in assets under management. And from the outside looking in, I had it all, but I also blew up physically. I had never gotten over the anxiety and the stress of the grind. Just was too much. I ended up I was 350 pounds, which meant I was morbidly obese. I had high blood pressure, hypertension. I had pre-diabetic panic attacks. I was medicating daily with alcohol. And one day I wandered into the hospital. I thought I was having like a heart issue. And I remember they took me into the emergency room in a curtain and put me on the table and started running tests. And then the doctors started coming in one at a time. And by the looks on their face, I knew I was in trouble. And the doctor looked at me and said, Mr. McMahon, it's not your heart, it's your liver. Your liver and your pancreas are shutting down. And if we don't go to some extreme measures tonight, you're going to die. So in an instant, I went from a CEO with a 7-figure income to being labeled an alcoholic and put on the end of a liver transplant waiting list. So literally I needed someone else to die for me to live. And I had to go through the journey that used to be a journey to accomplishment to it now is a journey to just purely survive. And the issues with organs, if you don't know anything about it, it's very difficult to get an organ at all. There's only one available for 4 people that need one that are listed. And there's hundreds and hundreds of people that are actually listed that aren't getting it either. And it's much harder if you've been labeled alcoholic liver failure, which I was. They also told me I had about 6 months left to live. So I had to get busy. And the big news was the average waiting time for a liver in Massachusetts at the time was 323 days, and I had 6 months left to live. So my journey took me to a lot of places. It took me to Mayo Clinic in Jacksonville. And Mayo Clinic told me that they told me about something called the MELD score, which was a model for end-stage liver disease. It just basically tells you what the percentage chance it is that you'll be alive in 90 days. So I had a 30% chance of being alive in 90 days, and 50% chance of being dead in 30 days. It was very, very, very nerve-wracking. And then they told me they can't give an organ to someone who hasn't done relapse prevention. So they send me to rehab. I go to drug and alcohol rehab, where they tell me something that kind of changed my life. They told me that I was an addict. They told me that I had a disease. They told me there was no cure, and they told me I was broken. And then they told me the biggest news, like the algorithm that they had for me to run for the rest of my life, if I were to survive, was to go to meetings every day, self-identify as being an addict, and having no control and no power. And the textbook definition, by the way, I'm big into definitions. If you follow any of my social, is rehabilitate. What does that mean? Rehabilitate means to restore back to its original condition, which was broken to begin with. And I started to learn about, like, what would I do? I was dreaming a little bit and praying, heavily praying, what would I do if I lived? I wanted to reinvent myself. So I connected with the word recreate. And recreate means to make something new that's never existed before. All right. And so I just kind of go through the motions. I get through rehab. When I got to rehab, this is where the story kind of gets interesting for financial advisors. Mayo tells me I'm inoperable. I'm too sick to get a transplant. I'm too sick to get operated on. I wouldn't survive. They're going to die. I'm going to die. I don't have enough time. I invite my children down because I know the day is coming where I'm not going to wake up one morning and they are. And the only thing they'd know about was someone that didn't live the life that he was very proud of. I need to say goodbye to my kids, and I had my brother come down who ran my he was my executor. So my brother Tim came down and we had a family meeting. So one thing I did have was many policies. So I had took out my policies, and that's when you push piles of your money while you're alive to the people in your life that you love and care about. And so I had I was on five waiver premiums for health for life insurance. I was on 5 disability policies that were triggered. I had 1 long-term care policy, 3 accelerated death benefit claims. I don't know if you know of anyone who's ever had one. I had 3 pay because I was terminally ill. So MetLife sent me, and Mass Mutual sent me, several $100,000. Social Security and so I triggered like 13 claims. My whole plan worked, and I was gonna most likely die. Everybody went home. It was just me and my mom, and she's a nurse, and she started smelling pneumonia. When you smell ammonia in your breath, you're most likely going to be dead soon. And she said this is like the beginning of the end, and so we thought it was going to be the end, and we were there waiting, and a miracle happened. There was a phone call from Mayo Clinic, and a prisoner died in Birmingham, Alabama, and he was an IV drug user, and he was a prisoner, which meant he was high risk, which meant the organ was not known to be safe for me or anybody else. And they allowed me to choose. So I choose to take it, and I took it, and they put the organ on a plane and brought it to Mayo Clinic, and they bring it up to the operating room, and they put it into my body. And I live, and the organ's perfectly fine. And I wake up, the next day or so, and just trying to reinvent myself was a long stretch from where I was, because, the metaphor I use, I was like a big piece of pottery that was dropped onto a concrete floor. Pieces of me were everywhere. My relationships, my dignity, my reputation, in the eyes of my business partners, my agents, my clients, everybody knew. It's not a very private matter when you turn yellow and green in front of everybody. So I changed. I made a decision that I'm going to change myself. I'm going to make myself into something new, something never before that has existed. And I'm going to talk to everybody I can. I'm going to read everything I can to recreate myself. So I learned about some things I learned about a Japanese mending process called kintsugi. And the Japanese believe that your imperfections, your scars and your imperfections are very beautiful. They don't hide them. Like in the rehab wanted to hide who I was. They wanted to hide, the fact that I was this addict supposedly. And then they send you home and you look great, but the scars are still there. They just paint over them. So the Japanese have this mending process called kintsugi. They take this broken pottery. Here's an example. This broken pottery, and they put it back together with this golden lacquer. And the golden lacquer is the glue. Kintsugi means golden rejoining. It's to join together with gold, because the scars and the stars of your life are your stars. Like, they're very beautiful. So the kintsugi is a very ancient art. The repaired pottery is more valuable than the original unbroken art. Paulo Coelho once said that scars are metals that are branded on the flesh. I have a giant scar that goes up and over here. So I wanted to get busy recreating myself. And the first thing I could do, is the only thing I could have control over, is I wanted to, lose weight. So I learned about losing weight algorithms, right? What are the algorithms for losing weight? The number one algorithm for losing weight is calorie deficit. I wanted to write a book. I had to learn about that, writing a book. I wanted to become this great big comeback story. And so the metaphor that I use for that is this, or the 3-step process that I teach people to recreate themselves. And everybody who can identify with any form of being broken, this is the 3 steps. And the first step is embedded in the word decision. So the decision to do something isn't about adding something to your life. Decisions are about cutting away. The etymology of decision means to cut away from. D means away from, like a detour. Decision means to cut away from. So to change the fruit of your life, you need to change the root. That's what Covey said. So you got to cut away. I mean, the big things you got to cut is your identity. The Latins called it your persona, which is your mask. It's a character's persona is a mask. Identity in Latin means repeated beingness, who you are, your identities. I didn't want to be an addict with a disease that had no cure. I wanted to be a superhero that had a purpose, that made a difference, that connects and teaches people ideas from this high cost that I paid. The second thing you need to do is you need to install a new identity. So in life, I was just doing an idea here. There are things that you do that drive you towards what you want to be, and there's things that you do that drive you away from. And the reality is that the paradox of choice, there is no choice. If you're really committed to being somebody or something, there's always what will move you closer and what will move you further away. Alcohol and going to bars and not working on myself and my business or my mind went away from who I wanted to be. Writing books, reading books, teaching others, developing content is all about helping people. So you have to install a new identity. So my identity was superhero. That's when I wrote my book, Superhero Self. How to recreate yourself and recover and recreate yourself in the 3 steps, right? The last one this is the most important one for us, because you need to, when things get big, like the metaphor of the domino, this is a big domino. I use this in my TED talk. It's a metaphor for something that's very big compared to where you are right now. So this is a 2-inch domino, right? And this domino is almost 100 times this size, thick and wide. So a 2-inch domino can knock over another 2-inch domino, right? Everyone's seen that. It's called the domino effect. So a 2-inch domino can knock over another 2-inch domino because a domino, when you store it, the physics of that is it's got action potential, and action potential means that it goes forward, and a 2-inch domino has enough action potential to knock over another one. And this will never happen, never stop happening. It's the domino effect. But the 2-inch domino has enough potential to knock over a 3-inch domino. Actually, a domino has more action potential than it currently than it currently uses for the 2-inch to hit the other 2-inch. So a 2-inch can knock over a 3-inch, and a 3-inch can knock over almost a 5-inch, and this could knock over almost an 8-inch domino to get to the bigger domino. So the whole idea with the domino effect is you want to maximize your action potential, because if I were to line these up, it would knock each other over. If you do it for 18 in a row, a 2-inch domino can knock over a 2-story building. So if you want to think about the metaphor for the domino, it's to recreate yourself. So here's the strategy. You gotta chop, decide, cut away from identities, cut away from bad business practices, chop away from that. All right. Then choose your rich. All right. The word rich it's not like rich wealth wise. Rich just means abundance. All right. It means to have an abundance of something. It doesn't have to be money. It could be time, could be energy, could be love, could be balance. And then chip away at the domino. So this domino effect is what I use to lose over 150 pounds. I first thing I did is I started drinking water. Then I started counting my calories. Then I started going to yoga. Then I started riding my bike. Then I went to hot yoga and almost threw up 14 times, right? And then, pretty soon I made my physical transformation, reading a book, writing a book. I learned how to do it a little bit at a time, all right? And everything's learnable through books. So that's where everything landed. And recreating yourself, brain, body, and business is what I talk about all over the place. I'm in a lot of places visiting on that. But I'm going to talk to you about business today as it relates to your practice. Because if you want to recreate your practice, a good place to start is with the domino effect. So whatever identity you want to create for yourself, brain, body, or business, right? And I suggest you do them separately, because there are three different things. Brain is knowledge and mindset. Body is your physical health and vitality and energy, your zest. And then your business is what you're going to use to fund everything. And, a lot of people want to transform. And I always say this is the transformation domino. And transformation is an observation. So if you say, wow, that person's transformed, they'll say, wow, you look great. You lost weight. You look happier, right? Oh, you got a tan. That's a physical observation. Transformation usually comes into that. Transcendence is a multiple of that. And transcendence is a spiritual transformation where you kind of come into your own. There's a book I just read by a guy named Stephen Pressfield. It says Turning Pro. Like, it's the day you stop being an amateur at what you do and started using and living your action potential and putting it in play every day, like a professional does, without being afraid of what others are going to say, without being worried about failing, just doing it and taking action on a daily basis. Now, transformation usually costs money and time. Transcendence normally does as well. Okay, so it's hard to get out of the grind. And get into the life that you want, the real life you want. So this is what I did. I set myself up on different social platforms. I started talking about recreating myself. I had a very simple message, and I built it out on Facebook. I started putting out short videos. I built it out on Instagram. So it was almost 200,000 people, 180,000 people. And recently on TikTok, 160,000 people. And then now it's LinkedIn, YouTube, my podcast, my website. All right. And I'm not saying this to brag in any way. I'm saying this to let you know that I figured it out. I figured out the algorithms to get engagement. Right. This is the last 28 days on Facebook. I had 1.2 million people see my stuff. Like in the last couple of days, it just never stops. It never stops going. So these algorithms. So I learned the algorithms to get people to see my stuff, have them connect with the message of transformation, which is a very popular message. And I drill it home. I've been chipping away at them. So I learned all these things. And every time I turn to stone over, all my buddies, my former CEO and GA buddies, I'm saying, man, you got to get online. It's remarkable. Like I literally was on the brink of death and I just put a few simple strategies in play and now it's blowing up pretty nicely. Like you got to get out, you got to get a piece of this. Do you know if you do a bad job at internet marketing, at social media, at putting a message out there, you're still going to get an A because almost no one's doing it yet. I always disagree with people who say like there's so much available. Like most of the people that are getting online aren't online yet. It's, you know, the older people are getting online in droves. My mother is like terrorizing everybody online. So I said, well, I wanted to create a program. I wanted to create a process to teach advisors exactly what we did. And I wanted to make it easy, like the dominoes. So I wrote the Anywhere Advisor, how to pandemic proof your practice, right? And Darren and Oliver are going to give everybody a copy of this book. And recession proof and pandemic proof your practice so you can work from anywhere in 10 easy steps. Like these are 10 easy dominoes, like legitimately easy dominoes. And even if you're doing it, which a lot of you are already, there's going to be ideas in here that you can use to create a multiplier or create progress on one of the areas. It's all put into a map. We have a map that each day, you know, you can do it in 10 days. All right. So if that's the case, what I want to talk to you about for a little bit now, and I want to take some questions. Actually, I'll stop and take a few questions down. Has anybody got any questions? Ask me questions. I mean, I get a lot of questions about, I don't know, I get questions on where to start, how to lose weight. I get that one a lot. Lost a lot of weight. How to create a message. Anybody curious of any of those questions? Anybody interested in taking their message online to social media?
Yeah, Terrance, I'm interested in everything that you just said, except for the weight loss. I don't need that.
Good for you. That's good. Yeah, so I'm going to talk to you about a very, this is kind of what I'm saying. Like, this is more of a 30,000 foot about, you know, not exactly what to do. The program, the Leads Academy has the mechanics, the science of doing this. Is more the art. Like, how do you do it? Where do you start? Like, one thing I would say, in books, there are so many amazing things. There's a book I just did a show on called Steal Like an Artist. And there's not one piece of art that exists in the world that someone didn't repurpose, recreate, hack, clip, and, you know, take an inspiration from, including Picasso, including the Beatles, including all the great artists in the world, you know, because you imitate people. Like, I imitated my father. When I looked left, I imitated a guy that drank a lot and was a good baseball player. Guess what? If I looked right, I would have imitated a guy that was a doctor that delivers babies. All right. So I imitated him. And then when you imitate someone, you emulate them. You ultimately do it better. And I did it better than my father. And I almost died from it. But you got to look at who you want to imitate to emulate. So the Beatles, the inspiration from the Beatles was Jerry Lee Lewis, Elvis Presley, and Chuck Berry. All right. So they played cover tunes, and then they started playing their own tunes inspired by those 3 or 4 people. Okay. And the Beatles became the Beatles. Kobe Bryant tried to play basketball like Michael Jordan, Charles Barkley, but Kobe had a different body. So he started adjusting what he saw. He was imitating them to emulate them, and sure enough, he did in his own way. That was his own art. So he copied. All right. They say when you copy from 1, it's stealing. When you copy from 5, it's inspiration. All right. So there's going to be clues out there of people that you follow and you connect with that you may want to model with a message or a presentation style or a business model or a lifestyle that they have. You can start like taking that life apart. Like I'm sure the Beatles did with Chuck Berry's song and Elvis's song. They took that apart like an auto mechanic would take a car apart. They put it on the ground, then they put it back together the way that they would use it. All right. So that is all about being inspired to do something. Letterman was inspired by Johnny Carson, who was inspired by Jack Benny. Conan was inspired by Letterman. So they always kind of copy someone and become themselves. And that's what I'm going to teach you. Like, you can be way more. You can speak so much more. This powerful force of effective communicators that are 300,000 strong, the financial advisor community, they're all the best kept secrets in their markets because they haven't gotten their messages out through social media. And there's a way to do it. I mean, I know we have compliance issues. There's a way, and I can answer some questions about, how workarounds for that. You don't necessarily have to give financial advice. You can give life advice. You can read books and talk about books. You can always dance around the periphery of it so you can communicate. But here's what here's what it is. Go with the flow and grow rich in your niche. The flow is a concept by Csikszentmihalyi, and he did a TED talk on it. It's called Flow. We all know what flow is. Kids that play with toys are in play. Like, time doesn't go by. They love it. Legos, they're challenging enough that they like to do it, but not easy enough that they're bored. It's called a flow state. So if you find your flow, and it's usually talking about things that you would do for free. So think about what you talk about on a Friday night, for instance. What do people ask you advice on? What do you like talking about? That's kind of your flow. Grow rich. I talk to this plentiful. Like, what do you want to be plentiful in your life? You want to design a lifestyle friendly business? I did. That's why I live here. So I can do this from anywhere on earth. In April of next year, I'm thinking about going around the world and doing this that way. Niche. Niche is a sub segment of a larger market. I see people's LinkedIn profiles, and they want to, they give advice to family members, business owners, successful individuals, CEOs, and special needs market. I saw that one profile. They want to be everything to everyone. They're no one to anyone. Grow rich in your niche. All right, my niche is financial advisors because I can connect with them. Everyone here has experienced the grind of prospecting, right? So what Maslow said, this is one of my favorite quotes: what one can be, one must be. So if you feel you can be more, there's something more waiting there for you. It's just one domino click away. And this is Maslow's hierarchy of need. And you got to understand this from a client's perspective. Why is online marketing so hot? Why is everybody in the world communicating with you on LinkedIn and all these places? Like, why? Because we all stuck at home and no one knows how to do it. Like, it just happens to be great timing that some people actually are already in a program to learn how to do that. Like, that was like number one to me, being able to work from anywhere. So in Maslow's hierarchy of need, people that don't have physiological things provided for, food and shelter, will do anything first to get that. And then they go into having safety, and then they go into building out their family. And then esteem is like the fourth level. Like I want to feel good about what I do. Unfortunately, a lot of people never even get to this point because they're so busy filling up the first three. The first four dominoes of the system is to provide for those early things. Money, safety, family, make sure everybody's safe, and then going into, this is me, this is why I was put here on this earth. And then you can ultimately self-actualize. The Japanese have another saying called ikigai, and ikigai is the intersection of four circles. All right. And it's adopted from Okinawa, which is in the blue zone, which is the place people live the longest in the world, one of 5 blue zones, but they credit their life longevity to ikigai, which means beingness. And it's the intersection of 4 things: what the world needs, what you love to do, what you're good at, and what people will pay for. People never retire in Okinawa because they love what they do. It's one of the few times you can almost never tell whether or not someone's getting paid for something. So what is your ikigai in this business? What's the market you love to be in? What are you good at? What do people need? And what can you make a fair living at? To find that out is hugely important. The journey to change anything is an emotional cycle of change. Brian Moran's a good friend of mine. This is in his book. And it talks about like getting excited about doing something like this. So if you line up your dominoes, if you download my book on my website, Superhero Self's on my website, TerranceMcMahon.com, you line up your dominoes and you get super excited about recreating yourself, brain, body, and business, and having a level 10 love, level 10 life, level 10 freedom, level 10 income. And then, you know, that's what's called uninformed optimism. Like there's no good reason that you feel good about that other than the fact that you just think you think you can do it. And then you change, and then you start to get inputs from the world. You get feedback from your friends because you're changing. It's going to be very threatening to them. You get real feedback from doing it. It's not easy. You get what's called informed pessimism. So you start to drop like a stone, and you go down, 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 down into what's called the valley of despair, which is a long, lonesome valley. And this place here is where a lot of people will what I call niche hop. So they bounce out of it into another niche. They try something new. They didn't figure it out. It's the person with the flashlight looking for the clue for success that looks for any sign of success, which is called informed optimism. It's a little blip, sign of life. Like, wow, that worked. Let me try that again. Blip, blip. Let me try it again. Blip, blip, blip. And now they start to get feedback, and now they're building a program. There isn't one person I know that has had massive breakthrough that they came easy. It just doesn't. It always takes time. And you know, when you get through the valley of despair, you start your way back up to informed optimism, which leads to success. This is the emotional cycle to change. And the snake that cannot shed its skin must perish. Like that's a very profound statement. It's a parable. So to do this in business, right? To make a change and go, you know, online, whatever your dominoes look like. I don't know where it is. A lot of times people might be already right here. Like I kind of have a Facebook page. I kind of know how to post. I'm getting a few leads here and there. But once in a while, like this fall, that won't happen. You have things missing in your process. You're a lot of times unscientifically inaccurate, like you're wrong. And some other times, someone's way, way back here, right? Like who in the world would think you can ever get there from here? Well, I'm here to tell you, like, nobody was as busted up as I was. I was done. I mean, I was overcooked, completely out. And all I needed to do, I didn't focus on this thing. I just focused on getting something done. I just focused on drinking water, getting healthy, you know, getting nourishment in my body, recovering, you know, moving a little bit, going for walks, riding my bike. And then I started learning I said, well, I can move. Now I'm going to think about writing a book. And then I started social media, and then you just keep building off of there. And after a while, it's not a series of a million things all at once. It's just a series of things one to the next. It's a hopscotching away. So in financial planning or advisors, whatever we call ourselves these days, the niche comes into effect. Actually, I'll start here. This is a hamburger. Like that's all there is to this whole equation. If you want to create abundance of clientele, which will give you an abundance of time, which will allow you to transform, which will allow you to transcend, it's all down to this, having a niche. And the niche is an audience with a problem. That's the meat of your life. The meat of your life is an audience with a problem. Like, why do I know financial advisors need this? I figured it out anyway. They always needed leads. So this isn't a new problem, but now it's worse because there's no more of the old stuff we used to do that at least worked, you know, bouncing around the country club or taking someone to dinner or lunch. Like that's pretty much long gone. But I also talk to them. I surveyed. I spent about 30 hours on the phone with talking to them about what they want. I created a hypothesis. I'm seeing financial advisors, they're increased stress and cap on their business. They're in the grind and they're not growing. Like a lot of people are stuck. It's one of the very few businesses you plateau at like 10 years in, and a lot of people never break out of that income level, which is, only with renewals and stuff. So I asked them these 4 questions. Do you enjoy online marketing? You're having difficulties with online marketing? Do you want to know more about online marketing? And why are your cases not closing that you get online? And the answers came back right here. 87% says I don't know what to do. I need simplicity. They needed a domino. They needed a sequence. 78% said they needed an easy way to engage customers online. 70% on the other side said they needed quality leads. They needed targeting. So I built the Anywhere Advisor book, which is a simple way to get targeted leads online. I built it out of that. So the audience for, my coaching is financial advisors that need to grow their business. They're stuck at home, and the system to get them going is this dominoes to get their businesses back up. It doesn't start there though. Doesn't start with an audience with a problem. You got to build authority and empathy with that audience, right? How do you build authority and empathy with an audience? All right. I had pretty good authority, but I wanted to make more authority. So I wrote a book. You don't have to write a book, by the way. You can write an article, right? You can write articles. You can start a page. You can start a blog. You can start a Twitter account. You can start anything. Like, that's where authority comes from. This is all examples of extreme authority, right? So I'm mentoring people. I'm out there with my messages to the market, and I have built out a pretty good financial presence in my general social. My message, by the way, resonates to everybody, but it hits particularly high home at the financial markets. And then the top part of the burger is traffic, your offer, and your funnels. Like, that's how the process works. Like, what is your offer to the audience that has a problem? So few people really have a structured offer. So when you go through this process, everything, the automation's up top of the burger, empathy and authorities in the bottom, and the audience is on the top. I almost never meet anybody who has a good fundamental strategy that really thought this out. Say, okay, I'm going to make this offer, like for instance, the Financial Leads Academy offered to agents that are stuck at home. Financial Leads Academy helps you get leads online, build authority, create traffic and funnels to automate your life so you can work from anywhere ultimately, but most specifically, get your businesses thriving again, get the doors open, get back to work. Getting empathy, authority, all part of the dominoes, line up dominoes to get it, and I'll talk to you about ways to get authority. Yeah, I'll give these slides definitely to everybody. With my book, I'll add all these slides in there. And there's a 1.5 hour presentation here. I won't take you through it because this is the whole presentation. It's like, get your business as simple as possible. And the algorithm is, I help X do Y so they can Z. I help X do Y so they can Z. I help financial advisors build a simple way to get leads online so that they can be more happier, healthier, and successful. Like, all you got to do, I help X do Y so they can Z. I help teachers. Why? Remove the fear of how and when to retire. This is really from a survey. The teacher told them that. I have a fear of how and when I can retire, and the agent put it in there. Z. And so they can live a worry-free life and have a great retirement. So this is the algorithm to doing that. And life's about teaching algorithms. Life's about observation, being observant. That's why we need quiet time in our life, so you can sit and reflect on, what's going on around you. If you've never been to Africa, I was in Zimbabwe right after I got diagnosed, believe it or not. I was like, I got to go see the world. I want to go see the animals. So I went to Zimbabwe, and I hired a guide, the best guide money could buy. And he said, you're not going to see any lions probably because there's so much food around. And if there's a lot of food around, a lion will just gorge. And then they'll sleep for the 3 days. You barely ever see them because they just sit around and look and watch. They really don't run around like the wild animals do. They kind of check stuff out. And the lions, what a lion does when it markets, it watches a herd and it just watches them for weakness, and it spots a place where it can win. It takes 100% of the herd and takes it down to 1 or 2%. And the 1 or 2% is where the win is. So to make life a lot less overwhelming to you, take a very small herd and perfect a little mini algorithm to create little mini wins, so you can start creating real progress in a larger market. You can expand your niche. It's a lot easier to expand it than it is to reduce it. And that's what the lion does. I mean, they just look. and they want to, getting that audience right, like that meat of your program. It's the most important part, is the audience with a real problem. Like, who has an audience and they're not sure what their problem is right now? I could go through like really good examples of audiences that have real problems right now. Any doctor, anybody? The doctors, the clients aren't coming in the office anymore, so they're hurting for sales. Of course, financial advisors, people that aren't doing the things they used to do. They're not only not going to the doctors, they're not doing their financial stuff. They're not attending to their financial matters. So, the audience that has a problem, everybody's worried about the election. Like any ads that have to do with stock market in the presidential election is definitely going to get their attention.
Here's one for you, Terrance. How about wealthy people that are worried about the estate planning laws changing if Biden gets elected? That's an audience that has a big problem and is worried about the election.
All right. So what do they worry? Whether are you concerned any ad, the whole process of writing ads, by the way, whether it's written as an email or an image ad, it's GAP, G-A-P. G, get their attention. All right. A, ask them a question. So if you had a picture of Joe Biden, right, or a dejected picture of Trump in your ad, they let you do it. Like, say, Biden wins the election. Are you worried about the estate tax problem? Like, that's asking them a question, and then you make them a promise. Pandemic. Make your estate plan tax law proof. My book is pandemic proof. So you come up with some copy and an offer. Bulletproof the bulletproof estate plan. For changing times. So, like, if your offer is the promise you can make is get your free tax calculation, simulation of here's the taxes with the current laws, here's the taxes with the proposed law. So you can do that calculation for a customer. So you get their attention with an image. You ask them a question, are you worried about estate plan with the new administration? And then our promise, the P in GAP is a promise. Make a promise to help them solve the problem is we're going to do a calculation for you. So your whole entire funnel would be that market that has that problem, right? The audience has a problem, what pain it is. They're worried about future tax adjustments, and your promise is a calculation. Your landing page would be a link to a Zoom call. You don't have to build a fancy website. Just say, hey, we're going to get on a call. I'm going to do this with you. I have software that does it with you on the spot. And then a follow-up sequence. These are just many ideas. Like in my book, you survey an audience, you create pain statement, you develop a promise, you create some kind of digital way for them to link together, like we all did today. And then if they say no, you follow up, because usually they do say no. We all know that. They don't just say yes. If that was the case, we'd all be on. Nobody on this call would be here right now. We'd all be not here. At least we follow up, right? But that's a good market. What other markets are people looking at? You could write a book about that, by the way, if you really want to do the work, Dave. You know how I wrote this book? This book's 108 pages long. I did a slideshow like this, and I recorded it on Zoom. So here's the algorithm for writing a book. I did a presentation on a topic I know a hell of a lot about. I did about 2-hour presentation about how to work from anywhere. I did with six parts to the book. A proven process for a stress-free life. I talked about my story and getting out of the grind, utilizing algorithms. The concept of a virtual hybrid office, being able to work from anywhere. The emotional cycle of change, and then algorithms and specializations, and then the 10 steps. And I recorded it, and then I went on rev.com, rev.com, and I had them transcribe it. I had a manuscript. I had a manuscript that was about 150% bigger than this book. And then I hired a professional writer, or my writing partner, who helped me write Superhero Self. She wrote the book out for me, gave me a draft, I adjusted it. And then I had a final manuscript. I hired an editor for, I think, $200. The editor went through my book, and then the editor gave it back to me fully correct. I hired a designer for a cover on 99 Designs, right? Which was, I think I paid about $1,000 for the book cover. So I got a good book cover because the book covers sell books. But that's the book. This is the one. So the Anywhere Advisor book, if you wanted to look at the contests, I had like 700 different copies to pick from. And this one here was the one people chose. I mean, a couple of people on the phone I saw that probably were in the selection. So I came up with an idea. I have an audience of advisors that need to get leads online, maybe work from anywhere, maybe be a little bit more healthy, maybe not have the grind going. I gave them a good piece of free content, and then I gave them a map to do it. And guess what? Like, I could talk to 10 advisors, 20 advisors a week on teaching them this process and never not have an open appointment slot, because it's a big problem. If you want to do well in life, solve a big problem. That's how you do well. You solve a massive problem. So if you look at problems in the world right now, we have, people are out of work. So if you had a product that helped people get out of work, or you had a product help people figure their financial lives out until they're back to work, that could be a good market. That's a big problem. Living too long is a big problem. Longevity. Market fluctuation is a problem. So that's it. I have a question from David. Disabled combat veteran niche is helping other veterans in Arizona become financially free and enjoy the freedoms they fought for. Too many veterans end up on the streets poor. That's a great market. I would suggest branding your plan, branding your offer, the never be broke vet, something like that, or, something along the lines of that. Like your program should give the clue to what you do. The Anywhere Advisor is kind of a clue, like, hey, this is an idea, recreating yourself, brain, body, and business, so that you can transcend is my major offer. Transformation is my sub offer. Leads online so you can get your office open again is the real easy offer. So these are all, it's a gradient of offers. There's always somewhere to go. That's a great, David, that's a great market. Most vets who fought hard for our countries haven't put the time into, or lack the time and expertise to build a good plan for their future that they earned so hard, they fought so hard to protect. So there's lots of copy that you can write. That's one of there's a book. I don't know if I have it. Actually, I do. If you guys want to get a good book, there's a book called Copywriting Secrets. He talks about Avatar, a Fred. A Fred is your client, and it's an acronym from what are their feelings, what are their expectations, E. Oh, FR is what's their reality, what's really going on in their life, expectations and desires. And then he has something called PQR2, like what are their problems, what are their questions, what question are they asking themselves right now in their head? Like, what's the question? So if you can get inside the conversation someone's having in their head right now, if you can jump inside that conversation, you're going to be very successful. That's like the $1 million question. The way to do that is to be a forensic scientist and look at blogs, look at groups. If you're working with vets, Dave, getting these chat groups and see what they're asking, or call them on the phone and say, what's one problem that you live with today, every day or intermittently, that's preventing you from living your best life? And if it went away, never came back again, would make the biggest impact on your life. So they'll tell you, like, what's one thing that you live with that ask that question and get a survey. For financial advisors, I kept hearing simple, I kept hearing targeted, I kept hearing online. Like everyone's getting rich online except us. So that's kind of why I circled back here, because I can help this crowd quick by getting strategic about it. Building, the process of building a social community and creating authority and brand, and doing a podcast, which is really easy to do. I mean, this is my studio right here in Hollywood. This is there's my producer Steve. He's banging around here. I'm in Hollywood, so that this is something I wanted to do. But that this is all built out. It wasn't very expensive. It was some of the equipment was, but to get started, you can get started with under $300 worth of equipment. If you want to have podcasts, it's a great way to establish authority, interview people. I'm just kind of banging out ideas here because I get a lot of questions. But what other questions? I have a few more minutes.
Terrance, I got a question for you.
Sure.
First of all, thanks for sharing your story. It's always inspiring to see and hear and learn about people's hero's journey and adversity that they've overcome. I'm on the outside looking in, just investigating and seeing if I want to engage Financial Leads Academy. And so my question is, how much help would you guys be able to provide for somebody who's going through a bit of a reinvention themselves, rebranding themselves, without getting too much into the details? Used to be an investment advisor, got caught on the wrong side of the fence relative to a Bernie Madoff type Ponzi scheme, where the Bernie who masterminded the fraud that myself and investment advisor clients lost money on fled the country, and the SEC decided not to chase him and bring him to justice, but instead to come up with the incredible story as to why I should have been responsible for my losses and my clients' losses. So a little bit of that in the backstory in terms of the work that I do now involves coaching other insurance agents, financial professionals from just some of the stuff that I've had to go through, but I'm keenly interested in getting back into personal production because I still have my insurance license, and that's where the vast majority of wealth that I accumulated in the past actually came from. So with that as a bit of a backstory in terms of maybe partnering with you guys to complete a rebrand and be able to head in that direction, is that something you guys have expertise, feel comfortable taking on as a project, feel like there'd be success, or would you advise against that direction?
The process of recreating yourself is story is the start. The demon that you swallow gives you its power. So you've been through some trauma, and that's the best place to start, because you have what's called a core story. Yeah. A hero goes leaves a known world and goes to an unknown world on a quest, and that hero encounters mentors and hero encounters setbacks and problems, and the hero that leaves the known world leaves for a tangible goal and comes back with an intangible transformation. That's the story. That's the Joseph Campbell model. And the hero always brings the elixir back to its old, leaves the unknown world and goes back to its known world. Like, I'm done. Like I did this because I want to. Like, I'm back giving you my, what I ate my demon, and it gave me its power. And now I'm very confident someone like you would benefit greatly from being around people that think like this. And you got to do a lot of the work yourself. I mean, there's a lot of work that I could point you in some great directions for ideas and models. I invested in many of them myself. Hard Jack Canfield and a guy named Ty Lopez. I was in Tony's.
Ty.
Yeah, well, I'm an investor in Ty's company. He just bought Pier 1 and
changing the retail game and trying to create a bunch of Amazons. Familiar with them.
But he taught me the algorithms that he uses right now to sell product on Pier 1 and Models and Steinmart. The same exact algorithms I'm teaching you. Same exact ones. Same exact. So those algorithms, what they do is they buy you time. These early ones about getting, the early classes in the Leads Academy, the ones that start on the left and go to the right, are the ones that can make the cash register ring to buy you time. Remember, transformation takes time and money. And once you get to the point where you have a flow of predictable leads, and now you're looking for, that transformation. It's something you do in your mind's eye and you chip away at. But the story, building a good core story that helps people connect, people connect to that type of thing. That, there's 1,000,001 people that said nothing bad ever happened to me. I'm rich. Look at my car. It's usually rented and they're usually a mess.
Yeah.
The best way to do it is say, look at me, what a disaster. But when you're on the ground, there's nowhere else to go but up. And that's a powerful
I'm
place.
sold on the fact that I carry an incredible story that would bode well.
Mhm.
There's still just a tiny tinge because we work in a society and an environment, an industry that's so high on trust. When you're dealing with people's money, there's just a small part of me that keeps questioning whether or not that I could overcome that if I decided to go down that path.
I think you can. I mean, if you gotta, answer the question before it's asked type thing, you build it into your process.
Yeah.
But I mean, my story is a story of someone that used to drink and do pills every day, to medicate anxiety, and it's like not the world's most credible person. I'm a university teacher in London now.
Yeah.
Like, I teach at Ravensbourne University because of my TikTok account. A dean called me up and hired me to teach their kids because I can teach those kids. Like this process about self-actualization, I taught that last week to 20 kids that are 20 years old. So if you have something to say, there'll be ears to listen. Trust me.
If I wanted to have some more detailed Q&A with somebody at the firm, like one of the owners, who'd be the best person to kind of have that conversation with? Because I don't want to
go offline with Darren. We can have a chat.
Yeah,
Sure.
and I'll send you. So I'll send you an email.
Okay.
Afterwards.
One
I'm
more
gonna send everyone a
question.
follow-up email.
Thanks,
after
Ike.
this.
Hey, thanks, Terrance. I
Good
appreciate
story.
the time.
You can eat your demon. Eat the demon that you swallow gives you its power. That's Campbell.
I love it.
What do you got, James?
Yeah. So quick question. So I'm going through the program and it's ridiculously awesome. So I'm almost up to, I should be at 5,000, followers on my Facebook page by this evening. But, for someone who's a captive agent like myself, what, and maybe it's just a little bit further in the training, what would you do or what would you suggest to try and help create that authority? Because there's so much in way of limitations of what we can do when you're captive versus when you're independent.
I mean, you can take an article and get an article published. I mean, one of the best ways to do that, I have a new show called and I'm just rolling this out. I don't want to have 20 applications, but I have a show called The Retirement Mentor. So I know how to podcast. I got all the equipment. I'm good on film, and advisors really struggle with content. So I've been videotaping them, lobbing them Joe Biden type questions about, how to answer the easiest questions about retirement and stuff. And, not a big joke, but that's like, that way they have some recorded content. Being interviewed as a guest a lot of times, James, would be acceptable to a compliance company. They would say, yeah, you can use that content. Once they look at the video, a lot of times, I was at 24 for 20 years. So I know the registration issues. One of the few advantages I have over my non-financial marketing peers is I ran a firm and was a principal. But that type of authority. And then there's a way, by the way, I just talked to a kid, he has a podcast called Self Mastery Radio. And he just talks about transformation. This might work for you too, Ike. That he just interviews people about transformation, quick stories. And those stories, he's got hundreds of thousands of people that see his stuff. And he connects with his authority is through his podcasts. It's not even in his space. He's in a different space. Like he's in a regulated space, but he has this motivational podcast. So that's a way to do it. You gotta, the reality of if you're in a captive environment or you're even a registered rep, you're playing golf on a course and the golf course is only letting you use 4 clubs, right? There's 14 clubs. And if you're a registered rep, you only get to use 4 or 5 clubs. So some clubs need to be repurposed. You gotta like use approved content and just create interesting positioning of the content. I do a lot of work with Mass Mutual. I do a lot of work with Penn, New York Life, Ameriprise, just at corporate level type stuff. And they're constantly worried about content, but they have great content you can repurpose. And that's a lot of times what you can do for authority. But if you get your Facebook page up bigger, you don't really need much more than that. You can say followed by, X number of people. And that's great that you did that, because a lot of people don't do that. It's called social proof, which is another form of authority. It's just others are watching and following you. That's powerful.
Thank you.
How were you able to get so many people to follow your Facebook page?
Facebook page was a combination of shout outs. I have a giant following overseas for some reason. My TED Talk kind of spawned that. So I do little, I have this is the last one here. Instagram is probably, in my content strategy usually is like on Instagram, I have a guy that does these images for me. He's over in Thailand, and he'll do these for $10. So I give him something that inspires it. And we got these images, and I take these images, and these are little snippets from my podcast. So I do 2 shows a week. And then my producer takes a clip, and then I do these little TikTok videos. So I kind of got like a little a combination of content from my show, a little bit of art, and then some snippets on TikTok with a board. I don't know if you see that board back there. So there's a board back there I do a little teaching on. So if you wanted to do by the way, no one's taken me up on this yet, do mentoring ideas on TikTok. TikTok is like, just do little money ideas, compounding interest, mortgages, buying a car, negotiating terms of a debt. But I mean, I spent a fair amount of money to answer your question, asking authorities to shout me out. So you basically pay to play. I certainly have organic following on all sites. I started Facebook with 3,000 people originally, and I was 200,000. The stuff on Facebook internationally goes really well. Like these are there's a fair amount of people. And I take pictures of stuff. So people like that. They like to hear about them. And this is the best thing on content. Don't talk about yourself. I made that mistake for 2 years. I thought everybody would be super impressed with what I've been through. And the reality is they want to go through something themselves. So you always want to start your TikToks off, or your content off with your problem, the hook. If you're a financial advisor and you're stuck at home and you're worried about getting leads, if you have an estate and you're worried about a change of administration, you think things are going to go out in taxes. If you're a teacher and you're worried about the how and when to retire, I have an information for you. So you always start with that, and at the end, some kind of call to action. So it's a little simple, hook, solution, call to action. So, I mean, the magic is, and there's a lot, by the way, if you want to, Cassandra, if you want to text or email me, you can go on Fiverr, and there's a lot of people that do the promotions for you if you were buying like just flat out buying followers, a target market follower can cost as much as $1. And then, a mid follower would be 5 cents. Sometimes you get them as low as 2 or 3 cents or 1 cent for like a generic one. So that's all on your content strategy. And a lot of people do it better than me. I'd do it again. I would do it in a little bit different strategy, which would be a whole nother call. I got to run. I have a hard stop at 3:13. Darren, you want to close it out? I know we're going to give everybody a book and a map. The book and map we talked about.
Yep.
In the slides. So I'll email you the slides in PowerPoint.
Yeah, send me those slides and I'll get it to everyone that's in the call today. I'll get it to everyone out. And also, thanks for your time today, Terrance.
Yeah.
Thanks. Thank you to
use
everyone
anything
that
you
joined.
want. Yeah, use anything you want any way you want. These are all ideas that are for the world. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Terrance.
Awesome.